Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to By the Horns, the first episode of 2022, a Bitcoin podcast about South Africa. And today we're joined by a recurring repeat guest, friend of the podcast, Hermann Vivier, otherwise known as Vrij Fokken No. Hermann, welcome back, man. Good to see you.
How's it? Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Lekker, great to have you, man. And I see you broadcasting live from the surf shack on the beach in Mossel Bay. How things going there?
No, it's going well, eh? We actually been on a bit of a break now. So the coaches, they've been on a 3 week holiday, at least the ones that are not working as lifeguards. So I've got the place to myself. I'm here to escape my own kids because the house is mad at this moment. But yeah, no, it's going well, eh?
Nice. So, I mean, for those that don't know, maybe just explain a little bit about what it is that you do on a daily basis, and then how that ties back into Bitcoin Ekasi, the new project you started.
Okay, cool. I'll give a quick overview. I'm like you said, I'm in the surf school at the moment. We've got a program that caters for about 35 kids. They come from a local township, which is walking distance from where I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting at Diaz Beach in Mossel Bay. The beach is about 100 meters behind me here. And these kids come down here on a daily basis from Tuesdays until Saturdays. We've got three junior coaches, one senior coach, and they coach the kids on a daily basis to surf. The program's all about surfing. We feed the kids on a daily basis, and we do some homework support, but the primary objective is to get them to learn surfing. And the reason we do that is because we believe that surfing teaches commitment, and commitment creates empowerment. Surfing is a little bit like Bitcoin. It's difficult to understand. You need a low time preference to get anywhere. If you're in a rush, it's probably not going to work for you. If you're ready to commit, then it can do something for you. And we've been doing this for about 10 years now. And my wife and I founded this in 2010, and more recently, sort of halfway through last year, we started tying in Bitcoin into this project by launching something similar to what Bitcoin Beach has done in El Salvador. So I've been listening to Michael Peterson talk about Bitcoin Beach since mid-2019. It just inspired me to use this NPO, which we've been running for so long, to use this as a platform to start something bigger in the township, because I think that we can only help about 40 kids max. That's our capacity, yeah. But if we can launch a Bitcoin economy in the township, I think we can help way more people. Bitcoin obviously can have a very positive impact on the community, being an effective form of savings and helping drive economic activity as it has done in El Salvador and El Zonte. So far we've gotten 3 shops to accept Bitcoin, and we've paid our coaches. We have been paying our coaches a portion of their salary in Bitcoin. We've been doing that for about 4 or 5 months now, and they spend their salary at the township shops buying groceries on a weekly basis. And that's pretty much the overview. That's what we've been doing.
So when you guys started Bitcoin Ekasi a while back, we chatted on the pod kind of towards the end of last year about what you're doing, and my impression has been that it's blown up quite a lot over the last few months. Like the support you guys have gotten internationally has been quite a lot. I mean, what from your perspective, what's it been like?
In a word, it's been overwhelming. We started first. I mean, obviously, the first thing we did was I started talking to our coaches about Bitcoin, and I sort of gave them as much of a Bitcoin education as I could within a short space of time. And we sort of did that through May, June, and July. And then in August last year, we started onboarding shops, and the coaches spent Bitcoin buying groceries from these shops throughout August, September, October, and into November. And then early December, we launched the idea on social media, on Twitter. And I mean, I knew there'd be some interest, obviously, but it's been quite overwhelming, the amount of just the amount of interest we've received. I wasn't quite ready for that. But it's awesome. I mean, it's so cool to see that there's so many people from around the world who are so enthusiastic about wanting to see something like this succeed. And I think Africa is a particularly good place to try and emulate what they've done in El Salvador. Africa being what it is, I think it's ripe for disruption in that sense. So yeah, it's been overwhelming, but it's been super cool to see all that support come in. I think our Twitter profile has gone a bit nuts. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest.
And you've got direct support now from the guys from Bitcoin Beach, right? From Galoy Wallets has reached out. I mean, I'm not too sure about the exact ins and outs. Maybe you want to educate people on what's happening there, but that's my understanding, that Galoy has reached out to you guys.
Yeah, we've had contact with Galoy. They're the people who wrote the Bitcoin Beach wallet implementation, and they've been very supportive. We obviously received a donation from them, which they announced on the Twitter Spaces we did towards the end of December. We also received some support from Bitcoin Beach. They pledged to match the donation that we received from Galoy. And we've also, Galoy has been very supportive in that they are very keen for us to take the software that they've developed for the Bitcoin Beach implementation and to see if we can use that. That's not something we've actually looked at yet. We can chat a little bit about that later on. But I mean, I'm not a developer, so we'd have to get some developer support if we're going to try and do that sort of thing. If I try and do that myself, I think I'll make a mess of it. So yeah, but they've been very supportive, and there's been a few other entities who's also reached out to us, all of them with a lot of support and generally just asking how can they help.
That's amazing, man. And so if you would say that the support you guys need right now, aside from financial support, is developer support, actually having local developers get involved who can get their hands dirty and help you guys implement the Galoy wallets at a local level in Mossel Bay.
Yeah, pretty much. I've never been a software developer, and I've read as much as I possibly could about Bitcoin for several years, and it's taken me a long time to get my head around the technical side of things. And my understanding is as deep as it can be, but I'm not super strong on the technical side of things. I can help myself, but if it comes to implementing something like this, we're definitely going to need developer support. And I kind of feel like it's gonna have to start with a sort of a feet on the ground approach. So we're gonna have to see if we could get some developers down here and actually come and scout out the location just to see what we're dealing with in the township, and sort of go from there, and maybe just advise us also, like, what's the best way to do this, like in terms of security, where do you set up the nodes, how do you power them, that sort of thing. So I think that's going to be something that we'll have to look at within the next couple of half a year to a year,
I think Galoy takes care a lot of that, like the channel management and all those things on Lightning alone. And they got some cool out of the box components, like to find your nearest vendor, right? So the vendor is on the map, like Bitcoin Beach's wallet, and you can find the nearest vendor, which would be a cool feature for the Bitcoin Ekasi app. That could probably work quite nicely. So there's a lot of out of the box solutions, but Africa is definitely different to what's happening in South America or Central America, and there's definitely going to be some bespoke little things. And then obviously you need the strike, you need the person, you need the user, and both the merchant to be able to have a bit in Bitcoin and have a bit in Rand, whether they're paying or saving. I think that'll be it's a must have. Did we lose Hermann?
Okay, we just lost Hermann there to Mossel Bay Internet. He's back. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, man. I think I lost you there for a bit.
So what I was saying is that, it's quite different. Africa is very different to South America and Central America in terms of like what the user and what the vendor wants, right? And
Yeah,
I think letting the merchants get some rands quite easily, whether they get paid in Lightning or not, is very important for them to go buy stock. So and letting the user keep some rands or Bitcoin is very important. So you need the strike in South Africa, and you need to close that circular, that loop of everything. And I think we can get those things one component at a time. We just put the puzzle together, we can get something going.
Brandon, on that point,
Yeah.
The data cost of internet is another aspect we need to think about here. In South Africa, especially in the lower LSM, like they're extremely data sensitive when it comes to using applications on their phone. And just look at the success of Moya, which is the local data-free messaging app, to see how important that is. So, but to your point earlier about it being different, I think, yes, sure, it is different from South America, but I think the similarities between Africa and Central America are much more than the difference between, South Africa and America, for example. North America, it's a very different market. I think the similarities between El Salvador and South Africa there's quite a few of them, besides the Spanish component.
Yeah.
But so there's a lot of things from Bitcoin Beach and Galoy that could be copy pasted into South Africa without much of a, too much adjustment. But I totally agree with you on the RAN side, because guys got to buy stock.
Yeah, you don't need to copy and paste them. You need to work with them. Galoy has got incredible IP that you need to utilize and work with them with. They've really worked hard, and they've proved a great concept, and now they can take that out to the world. But they're going to need help, in Africa or whatever. And this is kind of like how we need to work with them in a mutual level, but also start to create our own circular economy. So there's kind of like a middle layer there. And I think Bitcoiners are rational people, so we kind of will be able to meet in between, and we've got to figure out a way how to circumvent banks. They're not our friends. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. They only care about regulation. Like, guys, I mean, I've been on projects with banks where 80% of the scope is just KYC, AML, FICA shit. That's all they care about. They don't care about, helping lower LSM people save a little bit in a hard asset. They don't give a shit about that. And there are networks out there, and I think we will chat in the coming weeks and like to figure these puzzle pieces out and fucking try something,
Absolutely. It's an exciting time, man. Absolutely. And like you say, utilizing the open source software that Galoy has written with them, and to be like, cool, let's work with you guys, tweak it slightly for the African experience. Bring in people like Exonumia, do start doing translations of the software, because this whole thing's got to be done in indigenous languages. Like, it's got to be done in Xhosa, for example. I don't know, Herman, what's the prevalence of the local languages in the township there? Is it mainly Xhosa?
Yeah, it's all Xhosa. It's been pretty cool. Just on a sort of a separate note, but actually, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Blue Wallet has a Xhosa user interface. I
Really?
don't know where or how they did that, but yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you go to the Blue Wallet settings, you can actually select Xhosa as a language on the interface. But back to your point about the Galloway implementation, yeah, I think a lot of the hard work has already been done. The way I understand it, that implementation can almost be taken as is and used in our case, or like what they've done in Costa Rica with Bitcoin Jungle. They've taken the Galloway implementation, they've used it almost as is, but obviously there are going to be some tweaks that have to be made here and there. But whichever way it's done, just doing that implementation, it's going to need. We are going to have to somehow get a local developer on board to come and assist in some way or another. That's just not something that I can do alone.
You know what's an important piece.
Got Blue Wallets in Xhosa right there. Now I don't know how to change it back because I can't read the settings.
Yeah, but it's pretty awesome.
You know what's an important part of all this, I think, and this is for Africa in general, and definitely South Africa, and especially in the townships, is the incentive scheme about onboarding vendors. And like Lutando's on the ground, but he should be paid for his efforts, right? And what I've seen really work in Zambia and places like that is the agent model, where people, there's the agents who's in between facilitating the user, between the vendor and the user, and they are managing that link. And there's different parts and there are different jobs that they do, and it's wide in scope, but they do a lot of stuff. And then what really also worked, I saw Zona over like 2010 to 2016 really do well across Africa by putting all these booths across Africa for cash in, cash out points for mobile money. They obviously needed cash and they needed mobile money to send to their mom. And so they had like 2,000 booths across Zambia and Malawi and places like that. And the agent got a small cut. So imagine the agent became like some kind of routing node on Lightning, where they get like, if they open the channel between this vendor and these users, they get stuck in the routing fees. So we there's like kind of similarities we can work with, but that's how you get the network effect going.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important point to make that getting the vendors on board. Yeah, that's taken most of Lutando's time. For those people who don't know, Lutando is a senior coach that runs this whole effort on a daily basis. I'm alone in this in our headquarters now, but normally I'm not actually here. Lutando's the guy that runs the show. I do most of the work in the background as far as possible, and I mean he's had his hands full running this program and onboarding vendors at the same time. And onboarding vendors is obviously, Bitcoin Beach made that very clear. That's sort of like the crucial point. Like if you can't onboard vendors, you're not going anywhere with regards to creating a circular Bitcoin economy. And, it's easy to pay our coaches a salary and sats, provided that we have the sats to spend on that. But for them to spend the sats at a shop and to keep the shops in the loop and keep the shops happy, that's the tricky part. So yeah, Lutando is but fortunately he's really excited about this, and the salary that he's been earning from the surfer kids, we have been able to increase his salary by a little bit, because obviously the Bitcoin Ekasi effort has brought more attention to the NPO. And so with that extra attention, we have received extra support from people like Galloway and the donation that they pledged. And so we've been able to actually increase his salary by a considerable amount, which has just motivated him even more to spend more time in the community and talk to shop owners and and make sure that they come on board and that they stay on board. Because it's one thing to get them on board, but it's another thing to actually make sure that they stay on board. With the
Oh, we lost him again.
Yeah, froze it. A nice picture there. Yeah. I'm sure.
Did I lose you guys there?
There we go. You're back. We lost you for a bit. Herman, don't you want to turn your vibrate off on your phone there, bro? Just thinking of all our people listening to the audio and the podcast. Well, it's still vibrating. Anyway.
Yeah, I put the vibration off now.
Cool.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that, man.
No worries. So what were we saying about so Lutando's got a bit of a salary increase now because of the attention and the donations that have been coming through and the extra work he's been doing, the valuable work he's been doing. It's probably the most important thing, which is bringing vendors on board. How can the community support him? Is there anything that we could do from help out at the educational resources, financial, whatever? How can the community help him?
I mean, I think it just comes down to just comes down to talking to people. Well, it would be really great if the community could get rid of all the fucking shitcoiners on Twitter. That would be awesome, because they're wasting a lot of our time.
Amen.
But that's not going to happen. So, other than that, yeah, I mean, look, financial support at the end of the day, that's really important. I think, eventually one wants the Bitcoin economy to sort of become self-sustainable. But, the reality is that the platform that we are using, it's a non-profit organization. It's a donation-based non-profit organization. It has been for the last 10 years. And donations is going to be what bootstraps this thing, what kickstarts it. So if there are people who can afford to donate, particularly now that one can donate in Bitcoin, you don't have to donate in fiat, which I know people don't want to spend their Bitcoin, but if somebody has been holding it for several years and they've seen considerable gains, then it's not necessary to donate a massive amount of Bitcoin to make a big difference in what we're doing. And just to come back to your point about Lutando and the work that he's been doing, we have actually a lot of what he's received in terms of the Bitcoin part of his salary, which he's spending at the shops. He's also actually spent a lot of time learning how to. That's been quite challenging. So we've been using platforms like Bitrefill and Paxful, and he's spent quite a lot of time on those platforms learning how to convert Bitcoin back to fiat. And I know this is something that Bitcoiners don't want to hear, but it's so important for us to be able to go to the shop owners and show them that. It's in the sort of in the Bitcoin bubble, we like to talk about hodl, but we can't. It's impossible to onboard a vendor into accepting Bitcoin by just telling them that they've got to hold on to this thing forever. Like, you have to be able to demonstrate to them that this is convertible back to local fiat currency, and once you've done that, then they start becoming interested in holding it. And we've actually seen most of the vendors that we're spending our Bitcoin at are actually holding on to the vast majority of their Bitcoin. But that initial interest, we had to show them that this is easily convertible back to rands. And the challenge we have is that a lot of the vendors don't actually have bank accounts. So you got to find ways in which to convert Bitcoin back into local fiat currency without using a bank account. And for that, platforms like Paxful and Bitrefill has been very useful. And so that's actually what a lot of time, Lutando has spent quite a lot of time on Paxful these last 4 weeks, trading with as many different people on Paxful as possible, so that when he goes back to the vendors in the new year, He's already got a little trading network set up on Paxful for easy convertibility between Bitcoin and fiat, and it's been quite useful. Trading on Paxful peer to peer. He's got more experience doing that than I have at this moment. So that's been pretty cool to see. So we've actually paid him a portion of his salary in Bitcoin in motivation to do that. He earned a nice bonus at the end of last year in Bitcoin, and we paid him slightly more than we would have, on the condition that he goes and trades with as many different trading partners as possible on Paxful, all without using a bank account. It had to be cash trades.
So what would I imagine, like, if they wanted to convert the rand and there was some kind of fintech out there in this circular loop? So there's ability for them to get paid in Bitcoin and the user to pay in Bitcoin, and then they can choose to change it to rand in some kind of fintech app that's linked to it. So the mobile wallet, you can change it to rand. Would a debit card working on that app work so they can go to an ATM to withdraw cash if they want to? Would that work?
Yeah, that would work. Another app that we found quite useful. I don't know if you've probably heard about it. It's called 6.50.
Yeah.
It's basically, look, it's not a fantastic model that they have. I kind of feel it feels a bit sketchy. Because basically you deposit Bitcoin into this wallet app, which is obviously centralized, and then they convert it into a digital rand, but this digital rand only exists within the app. But then what's really cool about this app is that you can actually pay at any major retailer in South Africa: ShopRite, Checkers, Pick n Pay, all these shops, wherever you can pay with, I think it's Zapper. So Zapper is quite a common payment method, and it's as easy as swiping a card. And so something like that. The only thing I don't like about that app is that they haven't got Lightning. It's an on-chain transaction you got to make to get your Bitcoin into that app, which means small transactions, obviously it's not going to work. But something like that would be really cool. If we, I think, and I might be wrong here, but I think the game changer in El Salvador was when Strike came in, and people all of a sudden could switch in between Bitcoin and dollars almost instantly, because that gives people a sort of I don't know. If you're a shop vendor in the township, I would imagine seeing the price drop like we have over the last couple of days. It's a very different compared to somebody who's been holding for the last 5-6 years. It's a different scenario for people who've been holding this thing long term. A price drop like this doesn't really matter, but for a vendor who's turning stuff over on a daily basis, you want to be able to convert in and out of fiat currency easily and quickly. And so having a fintech app like that's linked to some sort of a debit card or something, that would really be the game changer, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Brandon and I actually have chatted to the guys from 6.50 about what they're doing, and it's what's interesting is it's not just Zapper. You can actually use Y codes as well. So Y codes are pretty much all major retailers. So you can go and use your phone to use your digital rands to go and buy whatever you want at any checkout point. But like you say, the issue is the on-chain transaction. So for someone saying $100 is a bit prohibitive, it only really starts making sense when you're sending more, depending on network fees, obviously. But it's cool that it's there, and it's a solution and people are using it. That's great. And the debit card one is a very interesting play. Brandon and I are chatting to some people who are doing something along this line, which is very, very cool. I'd love to see that get rolled out, because that's going to be the connector for someone to be able to take the debit card, swipe at a store, draw cash, transfer money to someone else, use it like you would without having a bank account. So a fintech app that is not a bank account. It's much easier to get set up than going to a bank. So yeah, there's lots of options there, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But
I think the most important part of it all is that they need to be incentivized to keep Bitcoin somehow, some way. The whole point of it is keep as much Bitcoin as you can. So there's this perfect balance you have to do between the UI UX. That's a hell of a project, but it's a fucking exciting one. It can be done, and we might as well try to do it.
Yeah, for sure. I think Lutando's main selling point when he goes into the township is the savings part and the savings power of Bitcoin. If you hold on to it long enough, it's a superior form of saving. And I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, it comes down to that 21 million hard cap limit. That's what gives Bitcoin its finite supply, and that finite supply means that it's anti-inflationary or deflationary, and over the long run, we've seen what happens over the long run. And so I think his main selling point in getting the vendors on board has been to emphasize that aspect of Bitcoin. So that's why most of the shop owners are holding on to the majority of the Bitcoin they get from our coaches. They see it as a investment into their future, and I think for now they are happy to sort of stomach the price volatility, because it's not a massive amount of money they've got on the line. The only people who are spending Bitcoin at their shops are the 4 coaches working for our NPO, and they're only spending, a couple of $100 per week at these shops. So it's not crucial to convert in and out of Bitcoin on a regular basis all the time, but getting them on board, it was crucial to illustrate easy convertibility, because all of them treated Bitcoin like a scam until we could illustrate how easily this is convertible in and out of fiat money. And then once we illustrated that, they were like, oh, okay, cool. So this is real money.
What's going back to, I think we always need to think about human greed. I think that's the thing that drives the world, right? We all agree on that. And we're all capitalists here, and we're all rationalists as well. So going back to the agent who's incentivized to bring on vendors, bring on users, and you get that network effect. If they become some kind of routing node and they only get fees by the other BTC transactions routing through them, therefore they only get fees if the user's paying the vendor in Bitcoin, or the vendor's doing something, maybe selling Bitcoin in other BTC to the user or something. So he only gets those kind of fees, meaning he's incentivized to only make sure that these 2 users are using Bitcoin, meaning, you know what I'm going at. It's kind of like you have to get the incentive structure in place. That's what Satoshi did. Satoshi did that fucking perfectly. And you kind of need to think about this in order to get the perfect circular economy.
Yeah, I think the incentive for Lutando so far has obviously been very different. But if you're going to expand this beyond, one little organization and one surf coach walking around in the township getting shops on board, you're going to have to look at a different incentive model than what we've been using so far. I think for Lutando, the incentive has been that he's never been in a position where he's been involved with something that has the potential to become this big. And I've seen the spark light up in his eyes when I show him some of the Twitter posts with 1,000 likes and 500 retweets and shit. Then he's like, whoa, for him, I think that's like the MasterCard advert. That's priceless, fucking, 400 Rand worth of sats per week doesn't come close to a post on social media with 1,000 likes for him. Because he feels perhaps for the first time in his life, he feels like he's part of something way, way, way bigger than what he's ever been involved with before. And it's the same for me, really. I mean, it feels amazing to be connected to this global network of people who are all aligned around a common interest, which is to see the adoption of Bitcoin spread as far and as wide as possible. But yeah, I think if you can get that incentive structure right to get as many vendors on board, this thing could spread far wider than one township. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think Lutando is doing more work for Bitcoin than 90% of Bitcoiners have done. Like the work he's doing is invaluable. Like it's amazing. He's out there doing the hard work, signing up vendors. He's not shit posting on Twitter. Like, which one is more valuable? It's quite clear. So my hat's off to him. Like, it's amazing work that he's doing.
Yeah, I should actually maybe get him to come and sit next to me next time. So that he can also have some FaceTime, because I mean, really hats off to Lutando. He's done so well, and he's done so well over a short period of time. I mean, I've had 7-8 years to get my head around this Bitcoin thing. He's only been really involved in it for the last 7 or 8 months, in that 7 or 8 months, he's onboarded 3 shops to accept Bitcoin. I've never onboarded a single shop. So yeah, no, it's pretty awesome.
Hermann, you mind if we shift gears a bit and talk about the technology and how you guys plan on rolling this out? So currently, what's the tech stack you guys are using for signing up vendors? Like, what wallets they're using? What's the process, and how do you guys plan on doing that? Going forward.
Yeah, no, sure. I think it's good to talk about that. I might embarrass myself a little bit here, but that's okay. I don't think one should refer to the tech stack that we are using, because it's not a tech stack. It's what I can only call a sort of a spoeg and a plak job. We've stuck things together in the best way we possibly can. But basically what we're doing at the moment is, for the vendors, we are using a combination of three different wallets. So there's the Allen text bot on Telegram, Blue Wallet, and Moon Wallet. And so basically what we do is, the first thing we'll do when we get a vendor on board is we'll open a wallet with them on Telegram using the Allen text bot, and we'll connect that to Blue Wallet. Blue Wallet then acts like a remote control for this Allen text bot wallet. The reason we do it that way around is because the Allen text bot wallet is one of the few wallets that issues a static Allen URL QR code. And we then print that QR code out, and we laminate it, and we stick it next to the till, so that our coaches can walk in, scan the QR code, and then simply make the payment without the vendor having to issue any invoices, because issuing invoices is quite a lengthy and a time consuming process.
Damn, we lost him again.
And Mossel Bay internet, man. This is why you can't issue invoices, because the internet drops all the time. So it's a good point, actually. Like, it's removed the frictional step. Hermann, we were just saying, like, you can't issue invoices if your internet drops all the time. But having a static QR code stuck up there in the shop, like, it removes that friction step. Now the vendor just has to tell you it's X amount of sats for that banana or that Coke or that pie or whatever you're buying. He just has to tell you, and he probably has those memorized. I suppose it changes.
Yeah, exactly. And also the reason we connect Blue Wallet to the Allen TextBot wallet, and the reason why we use Blue Wallet as a remote control is because Blue Wallet is one of the few wallets that lets you convert into South African Rand. So you can actually enter what you want to pay in South African rand, and it does the conversion to sats for you. So when one of our coaches walks into a shop up in the township, and they want to buy bread and it costs them 10 rand or whatever it might be, they would take the bread, they would walk up to the till. The vendor would simply tell them that's 10 rand. They would scan the static QR code. They would enter 10 rand in their wallet and they'd hit pay. And then whatever amount of sats Blue Wallet deems equal to 10 rand goes over to the vendor's Allen TextBot wallet, which they can then see by simply picking up their phone and looking at the screen. They don't have to do anything. They can just see the payment come in. But there's no invoice issuing or anything like that. And then if they want to hold that Bitcoin long term, we get them to transfer, or we get them to send it over to Moon Wallet, because Moon Wallet is sort of semi self custody. It's a little bit better because the Allen TextBot Blue Wallet setup is completely custodial, which is fine if you're not holding on to it long term. But if they want to hold on to it long term, we recommend that they move it over to Blue Wallet, and then they've got to back up their keys and so on and so forth. But that's something that we're still busy working around, that because the backing up of seed phrases and keys and that sort of thing is quite a tricky thing, which is why ultimately we want to move on to a model similar to what they've got in Bitcoin Beach, because there they've got the community bank set up, and I think that's ultimately the ideal. If you're gonna do something like this, I think the responsible way of doing it is doing what Bitcoin Beach has done, which is not fully self-custodial but neither custodial. So it's a form of semi-custodial, but the custodianship stays within the community. So you're not trusting. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, you finish, Hermann.
So you're not with the way Bitcoin Beach has done it. You're not trusting an exchange that is located God knows where with your private keys. You're trusting a group of community members, and you know where those people live. They've been living in the community for ages, and you can go kick down their door if something goes wrong. But you know they're not going anywhere because they've been in the community forever. So you trust those people, and that removes the element of people losing their backups and losing their phones and that sort of thing, because that is inevitably going to happen. We've already seen it happen once. Fortunately with a very small amount, but yeah.
So as time progresses in the community and as they evolve and become more educated, is there kind of a solution, or have you heard of a solution for them to move to more self-custodial solutions?
I mean, look, I think what we're doing at the moment works pretty well, because once they've moved their Lightning funds onto a Moon Wallet, if they really want to hold it for a long period of time, we then get them to move it back to an on-chain Blue Wallet, which is fully self-custody. Blue Wallet gives you the 12-word seed phrase, etc., and then you're fully self-custody. And Blue Wallet even has the vault, the option to set up a multi-signature wallet where you can. It's a very user-friendly way of setting up a multi-signature wallet. They call it the Vault on Blue Wallet, but it's basically just a multi-signature wallet. We haven't actually done that, but we have had Lutando, for example. He keeps his long-term Bitcoin savings is in a Blue Wallet, on-chain wallet, which is fully self-custody. And I think with the shop owners, I'd feel quite comfortable going forward with this model. But once you start doing what Bitcoin Beach has done, where the entire community starts using Bitcoin, now you got people who aren't business people, people who don't have a lot of financial literacy. I mean, the shop vendors are relatively good in terms of their financial literacy. They have to run a business, so I think with them the self-custody thing works all right. But if you're gonna get people from the wider community moving on to Bitcoin, then the Bitcoin Beach model I think works better, where you've got some trusted setup in the community, where they sort of
I wonder if like in the Bitcoin Beach model, as they grow and grow, if you can get the users who then say,
Are we
okay,
having internet issues again?
Oh, is it me?
All fine on my side.
Oh. Can you hear me now, Herman?
Yes, I'm back.
I'm wondering if Bitcoin Beach as the custodial model, and obviously at a community level, obviously that's an issue if you scale. Like imagine you had this as like a countrywide solution. You can't do that. So how do you break that down, and also how do you kind of migrate from that model to let users eventually, after some education, become self-custodial? And I'm sure they discuss this in the million fucking podcasts out there somewhere, but it's something to think about,
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, ultimately, and I've heard people talk about this, as you've said, on a million podcasts, not a million, but maybe something close to that. But I think ultimately with the Bitcoin Beach model, where you've got a community bank, of course you want to encourage people to move closer towards full self-custody. But you do that gradually so that you avoid the scenario where somebody loses their life savings because they don't know how to properly back up a 12-word seed phrase. So obviously, ultimately, you want to encourage people to move closer towards full self-custody.
Fair enough.
Just on the Bitcoin Beach model, like the community bank structure, what's important for people to know is that this works on a multi-sig system. So you're doing the Uncle Jim model, but all the people who are holding keys for the custodial part, they all live in your community, like you say, but they're holding one key of a multi-sig. So it's not like one individual is holding all the funds for the community and can run away. In a scenario like this, you probably have a 5 of 7 or a 7 of 9, or the bigger the quorum, the better, really, to stop people from running off with your funds. And I think that model doesn't scale nationally, but it scales, up to a couple of thousand people quite well, probably.
Yeah, I think that model can work quite well up to a community of several hundred or a few thousand people. But up to a level of like a country of a few million people, that's obviously not going to work. But I think for a particular community, like the community we're working with, or the community that Bitcoin Beach is based in, I think the model works quite well. And I think it's also important, like you pointed out, obviously, there's a quorum of people. No one single person or even 2 or 3 people can do anything on their own. It's like it's a 7 of 10 multi-sig or whatever the case may be. So it's quite robust in that sense. And also it's important to remember that this sort of model has been used before. It's not something that's entirely new. This idea of a community bank where a group of individuals will hold funds or assets on behalf of their community has been used before. Bitcoin is just the Bitcoin community bank setup that they've got in Bitcoin Beach is just another iteration of that. But I've heard of instances where this has been used in more traditional ways.
And then get a bit cosmic on this one. Like, if you guys have been following what's happening in Kazakhstan over the last few days, they shut the internet down, right? So Kazakhstan accounts for 12% of the world's hash rate. It all fled China, and a lot of it went to Kazakhstan. They shut off the internet because of the protests. And most people don't realize this, but every country has the ability to do this because there's only a few cables coming into your country with internet. And the government will regulate those ISPs, and they have kill switches for each country, essentially, so they can just cut off your access. Obviously, it's massively detrimental to the government to do that because all commerce just comes to a halt because everything runs on the internet nowadays. But they can if they need to. So what I'm getting at is, like, if it can happen in somewhere like Kazakhstan, like it could happen in El Salvador, and imagine in El Salvador, where everyone is now running on Bitcoin, if the internet gets shut off, all of a sudden people don't have the ability to move their funds around. And that's not because Bitcoin is broken. Like we saw, the Bitcoin network carried on running uninterrupted, slight difficulty adjustment because of the Kazakhstan, the miners didn't go offline. And I mean, it's just getting blocks out is the issue. But this is why satellite internet and mesh networks are so important. Because if you've got satellite internet, you can still propagate your blocks out to the network. And if you've got mesh networks, even if your ISP is blocking you, you can route packets of data around. So having those two things in place is really important. And I know in Venezuela the LochaNet is a mesh network project going on over there. Obviously, we're far away from that at Bitcoin Ekasi still, and not thinking about this level of stuff. But uninterrupted, electricity supply is an issue. If you've got a couple of nodes that are all running in the same area, and the power goes down, your node's not running. Struggle to reference, what's happening in the Bitcoin network. So like these redundancies are important. I don't know. That's Brandon. What do you think?
I just think at the community level we have these little nodes of communities. I don't think you need to do like the one node per community at first. I think you need to move towards that in the future. But I think that's where like a technical player who's trustworthy, who's like a Galoy is doing, and someone needs to overlook that architecture and make sure you have the fail safes in place to take care of those kind of things, because that's how we think. But those communities don't know about these kind of things. They don't think about this. We're past the point of understanding Bitcoin. We're past the point of doing all the work that we've done over all these years, and now we just think about the worst things in the world because that's what we do. Because everybody shit coins and everybody trades, and we're just sitting there without Bitcoin, and we got time to think. And that's where we have to come in and help.
Yeah, I mean, I want to just make a comment on something you said earlier about sensitivity to data use. I was actually up in the township just before we started recording here, and I quickly met up with Lutando, and I went to meet two of the shop owners, and one of them actually. So I bought a cool drink from the one shop, and he didn't have any data on his phone, and this is something that we tend not to think about. Like, running out of data is not. Is generally not something that bothers us. We're constantly connected, but for the shop owners, we're dealing with.
I've got a solution for that. I'll actually talk to you about offline. I think that's kind of like on the side stuff, but yes, I have thought about that as well. It's a very good point.
But there are. And this is one of the reasons why the static QR code works so well, because we could still buy from him. I mean, he couldn't check that the payment came through, but I could send the payment to him without him having to create a invoice. But this is, I mean, maybe not so much in terms of access to the internet when it comes to the township, but I mean, access to electricity is another major thing. Like sometimes I'll talk to Lutando and I'll ask him like, look man, what's up with this with the shop owner, how's it going there? And he's like, I've been there 2 days in a row, but the guy's phone is still flat. And it's something that one has to look at if you're going to be dealing with Bitcoin and the Lightning Network and doing payments that way. Then access to electricity and access to internet is something that you have to take into consideration. I mean, because they mostly deal with cash, and obviously, even if there's a complete blackout, cash never fails. A cash payment from one hand to another hand never fails. But if you're dealing with Bitcoin, the reality is, if the electricity goes off and you don't have access to the internet, then you're stuck. Unless you plan for it. And there are obviously ways to plan for it. I'm not super technical on this, but I know that there are ways of even making Lightning payments offline. There's what's that guy from Allen Bits on Twitter, Ben Ark, who's been talking. I think it's Ben Ark,
I think so.
who's been talking about his offline Lightning payment terminals and so on. So there are ways around it, but you got to plan for it.
Yeah.
Which, like you say, we tend to do because we've got time to think about stuff.
Yeah, so I got a solution for the data side, but the electricity side I got nothing. But just give me some time. Let's figure it out. There's always a way.
Well, I mean, you can buy electricity with sats through Carl. So there's that.
That's true.
So I mean, you can buy airtime and data, and you can buy electricity.
Yeah.
Well, you can buy airtime and you convert it to data, but you can do that with sats currently as it stands. Which for these vendors that are operating and have built a bit of a treasury in sats on Lightning, cool. They can buy airtime now, and they can buy data, which previously was a bit of a hack for them, especially if they don't have a bank account, because you got to physically take cash and go and buy a voucher, which is a pain. We used our banking app. We just go into the banking app and buy airtime and data. So it's a bit of a game changer. Well, maybe not a game changer, but makes their life a bit easier. There's that Mossel Bay internet letting us down again.
Oh, there he's back.
Shit, man.
Back.
I'm back. Sorry, this is very annoying. I apologize for the internet.
No, you're all good. It adds flavor.
Should we talk about the dip?
Hang on, before we get onto the dip.
But I promise you. Sorry, I just want to say I promise you that this intermittent internet is better than two toddlers running around screaming in the background. So
Fair enough.
At least you're not dealing with that.
Hermann, you said you've got a spoeg and plak system. I don't think it's spoeg and plak at all. I think what you've done is like taken the technology that's available and made the most intelligent design decisions for how to do this in the most efficient way. Because like having a static QR code for your Lightning address, like first of finding a static Lightning address QR code is a mission. You've got to find a service provider who does that. And then printing and laminating it. Like it's brilliant in its simplicity. That takes you one step closer to being like cash, because now you put the control in the user's hand. The vendor doesn't have to do anything. All he has to do is see that his transaction has come through. Like this is what companies pay millions to consultants to figure out for them. Like it's like common sense, but it's brilliant.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
No, it's great work, man. And are you guys running your own node that you are connecting the vendors' wallets to, or what's happening there? Are they just connecting to the open nodes that come with Blue Wallet?
No, not yet. I was halfway through the process of setting up a Lightning node. I was either going to use Umbrel or my node, but the last 2-3 months has been quite disruptive on a personal level. We've had to move houses quite a few times. Nothing serious or major, but we should be back in our own place sort of mid-March, April, and then I'll get back onto that. But having been on the road practically for the last couple of months, I haven't really been able to get that set up. But I would like to go through the process myself, and if I do manage, then it's a little bit daunting because I'm not super strong on the technical side of things. I'm quite capable of running a full node using an old laptop, Ubuntu, and Bitcoin Core. But anything beyond that sort of stretches the limit of my technical abilities. So for the moment, all the Lightning nodes that we are using are fully custodial. Unless the vendors want to save for the long term, then we move back to an on-chain wallet through Moon. But then even then, they are connecting to whatever node Blue Wallet has them connect to. But it should be fairly straightforward setting up a node using a Raspberry Pi or whatever, and getting Blue Wallet to connect to that, which is definitely obviously something we'd like to do.
Yeah, give us a shot when you're ready to do that, because that's something I spend my hair pulling my hair out setting our node up. But with Umbrel, it makes it so easy now. You know, but yeah, it works. And then so I'm going to drop Tensai in it. He's got a node that he's running on Umbrel with his own power backup he's built for it. So you have a 24-hour uptime, 100% uptime on that. So just chat to Tensai about that as well. But for the interim, you guys are more than welcome to reference our nodes for the, for the project.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, awesome. I mean, definitely that's something that we'd like to do. But I think ideally we would like to get set up with a Lightning node as well. I mean, the on-chain stuff we do very, very, very few on-chain transactions because it's really only when we are sending sats to a long-term savings setup that we use on-chain transactions. 99% of everything we do is on Lightning. So getting set up with a Lightning node would also be quite important. I don't think we want to be relying on we definitely don't want to be relying on custodial setups indefinitely. Yeah. That's for sure.
I mean, the way I see it is that it's actually important to do that and set up that node and start building whatever infrastructure you build, that incentive comes into again, and to get some kind of routing happening, because right now it's not that large, right? The whole routing fees, but I believe it will be in 5 years or whatever it is. And if you could become that central player and you become, a large liquidity provider to all the people plugged into you, something like that, all those fees you get, you can pass on to the server kids. It's those kind of structures you can put in place that I see where there's some cool things that could happen, and you can start really putting these blocks together.
Yeah, no, for sure, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
So how do you feel
about
still
with us?
Yeah, he's probably getting a drink or something. But how do you feel about the dip?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I'm not too bothered. Fortunately I've seen Bitcoin, go through its fair share of dips. Yeah, I mean, look, I think what we've seen recently on the bigger, if you consider the bigger picture, this is nothing to be concerned about, really.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm not a macro guy, not by a long shot. But if I just look at what's happening in the world and I look at everything that's been happening in the Bitcoin space, I don't quite understand how on earth the price is still at the level where it's at. But I mean, I think, I guess time will tell. Eventually people come around, and I just keep on reminding myself, like, prior to 2020, at the end of 2017, Bitcoin peaked at, what was it, $20,000. So at the moment we're still at a level that's more than double that. So on a longer time horizon, I'm not too bothered by this dip, I don't think.
Yeah, I laughed at that tweet from Croesus, however you pronounce it, where Bitcoin's about getting rich, but it's 90% of the time it's pain.
Man. I mean, look, I was. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, I looked at that tweet and I thought to myself that, I mean, actually, to be honest with you, I think when you go through a dip, it's like anything in life, and maybe this is a little bit philosophical, but it's like anything else in life, you only learn when you suffer. When things go well and everything is hunky-dory, we don't tend to learn very much. It's when the going gets tough that we start learning and changing and adapting. And for myself, speaking for myself only, I bought my first Bitcoin in December 2013, somewhere near the peak. Oh, wow. And then a month or two later, a month or two later, I convinced my wife to take a fairly large amount of money for us. At that point in time, we were very, we were living, on a week-to-week basis back then. And then, I think it must have been somewhere around March 2014 or something, and I got myself a little bit more, and then Bitcoin did what it did in 2014, and I suffered for a year and a half, and I think that's where I learned more about Bitcoin in a short space of time than at any other point in my life, was when I went through that period of, oh fuck, what have I done? That's the question I asked myself, and I think I was still doing surf lessons myself, so I think I spent the entire December in 2013 giving surf lessons, and I took all that cash, and I bought my first Bitcoin with cash. I actually met the person in person, and this guy helped me install Bitcoin Core, and I waited 3 fucking weeks for the blockchain to synchronize, and then went back to this guy with a pile of cash, and I bought my first Bitcoin, and then I suffered, like that tweet says, I suffered a year and a half, maybe even more. I suffered a year and a half of pain. And I think during that time, I read everything I could about Bitcoin, and I don't think I've ever learned more in a year and a half than I did during that time. And it's because I was suffering, it's because I was suffering the pain and the loss of buying somewhere near the top and then having to see it go down. And fortunately, I held on. But it's because I went through that period of suffering, which motivated me to learn. So, when it goes through a dip, I think that's a perfect opportunity to, either you're going to sell, you're going to panic and sell, or you're going to take the opportunity to learn something you didn't know before. That's kind of how I feel about the dip.
You either become a paper-handed bitch or you become a Chad, bro. Those are your two options.
That's pretty much what it comes down to, eh? That's what it comes down to, yeah.
What kept your conviction in check that early on, to keep learning and stuff? What do you think it was?
Well, I think it was initially motivated by not wanting to admit to my wife that I fucked up.
Fair enough.
So that motivated me to keep learning until I could explain to her why it wasn't a fuck up. But I think the one thing that spoke to me was, that initial experience of downloading the blockchain, and going through that process. I sort of had this moment where I was like, shit, man, this thing is really accessible. Like, I didn't have to disclose any details about who I am. In fact, I was using a Wi-Fi network I wasn't even supposed to be using. I sort of borrowing data to download this blockchain, and there a couple of weeks later, I had this thing, and it was just so open and so accessible. And I've always been inclined to believe in things that are transparent. I think, and maybe that's because I come from a background of addiction and recovery from addiction. But there's one thing that holds true for every single addict, and that's very simple. You're only as sick as your secrets. Whatever you keep secret within yourself ends up festering and causing problems. So if you want to get rid of your problems, it's as simple as sitting down with another human being and talking about whatever it is that's bothering you. If you keep it inside, if you keep it bottled up within yourself, eventually it's gonna fester, and it's gonna create something that's not very healthy. So I think when I realized this is such a transparent thing, and obviously going through the pain and suffering of downloading a blockchain, because that's also quite a painful and a suffering process, especially if you have to bum the Wi-Fi. Going through that process taught me that this is a process of transparency and disclosure, and that openness and transparency just made me think there's got to be something to this. So I think that's what initially got me. That's what bit me, so to speak.
That's a great story, man. Well said.
Yeah.
And super early. So early. What, 2014?
Super early.
Yes. To have that conviction in 2014, when like finding information was just, it's not as easy as it is now.
Yeah, it was. It was December 2013, and it was actually. It was. I wish I still had it, but I lost a copy of Bitcoin Magazine somewhere in the move. But the guy I bought the Bitcoin from actually gave me a physical copy of Bitcoin Magazine. And that's what got me into it. And yeah, it was really early, but I think in a way it's a blessing, because the only people writing anything about Bitcoin at that stage were people who really cared about it. I think the ratio between signal to noise at that point in time was very different from what it is now. If you go online, you go onto Twitter, you search Google or whatever the fuck it is that you do, and you look for information about Bitcoin, it's become quite tricky to filter through the bullshit, because there is just such a copious amount of nonsense being written by people, even people who should know better. People with a high level of intelligence and with the ability to go and research and understand what this thing is, just writing the biggest load. Well, amongst many other, yes. But in 2013 and 2014, there were very few people writing about Bitcoin, and those who did write about it really cared about it.
Yeah. I read something really cool. It was yesterday, or no, the day before, from that Sohail Bloom guy who always does those threads that inspires people, and I kind of yawn at those things, but the one caught my eye, and it's the money paradox. And the money paradox is that the most successful investors in the world are the ones that lost money at some point. And I was like, wow, this actually draws such a good comparison to Bitcoiners who shitcoined before and then became the maxis that they are. And I think we're just in that new cycle. I don't know what you guys think is going to happen in the next year or two with shitcoiners, but hopefully there's a lot more that come to whatever our side, whatever color our side is, or whatever they call us.
There's going to be a lot of people with useless JPEGs, bro.
It's bad, eh? That's where the noise is. It's a lot of noise, and I think like the Bitcoiners are really trying to be clear and concise and try to give signal. And there obviously are some bad Bitcoiners who just talk shit and talk about TA all the time, whatever. But it's going to be a bad time for the NFTers. That's my belief.
Yeah, man, shitcoiners just piss me off. Like really, I don't mean to be offensive or anything, but for fuck's sakes, man. And I'd be more than happy to tolerate people working on different projects. But what really pisses me off is when people misrepresent something, and that's happening, that's happening in both the sort of these very intellectual guys who are writing for mainstream media and then say things about Bitcoin that's just completely misguided. It's like, dude, just go and read one or two Bitcoin magazine articles or whatever, and you'll see that that's what you're writing is absolute nonsense. But then it also applies to people who are pumping all kinds of shitcoins and just pretending that it's something that it's not. I mean, the more I've looked at, I don't know a hell of a lot about Ethereum, and I actually used to be quite enthusiastic about Ethereum when it launched in 2014. I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, Look at what they're trying to do here. Like this could be really interesting. And then it sort of got to a point, like especially when this nonsense about ultrasound money. I mean, yes, when I saw that, I just thought to myself, what the fuck are you talking about? Like you can't come now, 6 years after you've launched this thing and now come and say that you're turning it into sound money. The very fact that you're changing shit makes it not sound money. If something isn't sound, you can't change it into sound money. Bitcoin is sound money because it's been 100% predictable from day one what's going to happen with the supply. Ethereum supply has been all over the fucking place.
Amen.
And now 6 years later, you come and you say, no, but we're going to change this, and then it's going to become sound money. I'm like, motherfucker, in principle, that's not possible. Like the fact that you're changing it to begin with means that whatever this thing is, it can't be sound money, and it definitely can't be ultrasound money. So if you're working on something different and you want to do something different, that's great. I mean, I'm all for experimentation and whatever, but don't pretend that something is something that it's not. That's just dishonest. And I think there's very few things that I despise more than dishonesty.
And somehow look, we live in a speculative world that's driven solely by central banks and politicians. That's driven into this, and this is why it's happening, right? I believe that. I think you guys do too. And you got this kind of short-term return that people get, whatever. Ethereum's up 400, 500, 600% in a year, okay? And everybody thinks they're fucking winning. And here's the Bitcoiners who did on a year like 60, 70%, okay? At one point it was 100%, and now it's gone down. And people are like, oh, I should have bought shitcoins and that stuff. But they never look at the 5-year horizon, ever. Like somehow people just don't look at that. After 5-year blocks, and Bitcoin's winning every time. So when we try and explain this, they're like, they don't care. They still feel shit about their decisions. And then, in 5 years' time, when you're right, they already forgot what you said. So it's kind of like, fuck, man. It's just tough, eh? It's tough.
It's a thankless job, orange pilling people, Brandon.
It is a thankless job, eh? But sorry?
No one comes to you and is like, thank you so much for keeping me away from shitcoins. Like, let me get about that.
No, in fact, people are asking you, why did you tell me to buy Bitcoin if I could have bought something else and I could have, made triple the amount of money in the same, time frame. And look, I don't like making moral arguments. Because I think morality is something that each person has to decide for themselves. But I can only speak for myself, and I mean, look, I lost a good friend. Actually, he helped us co-found this NPO. When we started in 2010, we started with this guy, and he was from one of the communities we worked in, and he died 3 days ago. He had lung cancer, very, very aggressive lung cancer, died at the age of 47, but he was an awesome guy. He also turned his life around after going down the downward spiral of drugs and alcohol, like so many people do in these communities. And, I kind of just, once again, I looked at that experience, after visiting his family to pay our respects and pass on our condolences. And I asked myself, if I'm lying on my deathbed one day, I'm not going to give a flying fuck about how much money I made. But I am going to be asking myself, what have I done to make life better for myself and the people around me. And just going back to this one of the things that just pissed me off about Ethereum again recently is this whole debate around proof of stake and how it solves this problem of proof of work. And I'm like, for fuck's sakes, people, like Bitcoin, and I think this is what a lot of people don't even realize, like hair dryers of the world use more energy than Bitcoin. TVs that remain switched on because people like the convenience of standby rather than switching it off at the plug, uses more electricity than Bitcoin. So what exactly is proof of stake solving? And then I listened to interviews with Vitalik, who's the co-founder of Ethereum and is holding a massive bag of Ethereum. And I'm like, motherfucker, this guy's got incentive to move on to proof of stake because he's going to become one of the biggest validators on the network overnight. But he's standing there and he's not talking about that. He's talking about how proof of stake solves a non-existent problem. And this is what drives me insane about shitcoiners. It's this like, okay, I don't care how much money you've made, but where is the integrity, And like for myself personally, I don't care about what other people do. Like, dude, if you want to go make money on shitcoins, go make your money on shitcoins. But speaking for myself, if I'm going to be lying on my deathbed one day, I would prefer to have had integrity rather than, a 300% gain as opposed to 100% gain or whatever the case might be. And it's that lack of integrity that really, I'm sorry, I know, but that's what really pisses me off about all the shitcoining I've seen. And I think maybe I'm a little bit oversensitive to it right now, but with what we've been doing with Bitcoin Ekasi, because it's generated so much interest on Twitter over the last 3 months, it's unbelievable how many fucking shitcoiners have crawled out of the woodwork and have just been sprawling all over the things that we've been posting on Twitter.
What are they saying?
Buy Hex.
Like you have to look at this and you have to look at that and you've got to look at this and you've got to look at that and it's just like, dude, no, I don't. I don't, man. Like, you're free to do whatever the hell it is that you want to do, but that don't come and waste my time by it's just and then I've actually I've tried to ignore most of it, but I think it's sometimes it's difficult to ignore this stuff. I've tried to ignore most of it, but when people become sort of like not just dishonest, but like dishonest in a nasty way, it becomes difficult to ignore this stuff. I've got to say, the Bitcoin Cash people and the Bitcoin SV, particularly the Bitcoin SV people, they're the fucking worst, man. Like really, there is no worse shitcoin than Bitcoin SV.
No, Cardano, Cardano is up there with Bitcoin SV. They just got that troll army that's just fucking everywhere, bro. Comments, someone's like, "Oh, buy Cardano."
It's just, I don't know, man. The lack of integrity is just astonishing. Like, really. I would have absolutely no problem with these people if they were just being honest about what they were doing. But it's this sort of like sinister. There's a particularly good word in Afrikaans for it, and it's called achterbaks. It means coming at something from behind. It's like, if you're going to tackle me, come at me from in front, and I can see you coming. But if you tackle me from behind, that's not fair.
Herman, have you ever listened to the BBC podcast about the missing crypto queen, about Dr. Ruja Ignatova? She was central to the OneCoin scam that they defrauded mainly Ugandan farmers. Out of the total that they took was about $15 billion in scams. And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like taking a person who has perceived credibility. She worked for McKinsey. She had a PhD in economics. Like, she was a very credible expert. And I mean, you and I have spoken a bit about the crisis of experts, in the 2020s. But she was a perceived expert, and she pushed this thing into the developing world. They used the MLM strategy. Obviously, they come there with their pyramid schemes attached to a crypto project. And they defrauded some of the poorest people on earth, Ugandan farmers, out of their life savings to buy into crypto hype. And they're like, don't buy Bitcoin. This is better than Bitcoin. You got to buy these bundles of fucking one coin. This chick is still at large. They haven't caught her. She's cruising. They think she's had a facelift or a whole bunch of plastic surgery done to change her appearance and is cruising around the Mediterranean on a yacht. But she might be dead because the Bulgarian mafia were bankrolling her, so they might have bumped her off. But maybe she got her just desserts. But it's exactly what you're saying, man. Like these scammers, they have no moral compass. They don't give a shit. They don't have any integrity or any ethics.
Can I add something about something I've really noticed in the human element before we close out everything? I worked with a VC back in 2017, and I really respect this guy. This guy built an incredible software business, and then he led this world-class program, and we were one of the 10 companies a part of this cohort. And these were global companies, American companies, Israeli companies, whatever. And these are proper startups, right? This guy was intelligent, just a brilliant guy that I really looked up to, okay? And he is full-on ETH head right now. And he's actually one of the very large architects for that Constitution DAO. Remember when they changed the American Constitution to a DAO thing that happened a couple of months ago? I don't know if you guys saw that shit. The American Constitution, they changed to a DAO. Whatever, okay? It's fucking bullshit. But the thing is I notice about the VC types and these kind of people is that they somehow think they can make the world better by changing the rules and doing things that they just can construct these mechanisms, and they see it as they see fit, and they'll just do whatever they can, and that's the right way. Whereas Bitcoiners, they say, okay, we have these rules, we stick by them, and we make the world better within these rules. And these guys are out there with their own rules, and that's the fucking difference between us and them. And
yeah.
I know which side is going to win, 100% believe it. And these guys think their side's going to win because they just think like rules need to be changed, need to be agile, adaptable, whatever. But I just think the world needs to work on one set of defined rules where nobody can control. No one controls those rules. And then you define those rules within them that humans can control. And that's kind of like the complete separation of it.
Yeah, it's the savior complex versus like, setting up a structure that works.
It's vain. It's
vanity,
vain, man.
Right. Yeah,
it's vanity.
It's that meme, like, I'm new to Bitcoin and I'm here to fix it. Like, I'm going to save society with my, it's the Vitalik, he's like, he thinks that central banking from the perspective of changing monetary policy is a good idea because he thinks it should be managed. I've literally heard him say this. Whereas us as Bitcoiners are like, no, it's a terrible idea. No one should be setting monetary policy. It should be set by individuals in their interactions between each other. And that stability...
We believe that
is what gives you long-term growth, because how can you plan on if your foundations are built on sand and they're ever shifting? Can't be done.
It's like it's building a table structure in whatever you're building, and that's whatever software. You got your metadata, and that shouldn't change, and you build all your table structures around that, right? It's the fucking same thing. Just have a set of rules that you stick by, and then build the world around that. Yeah, man. But that's
I think I like what you alluded to there with it having to do with vanity. I see it as a sense of self-importance. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I tend to bring at the end of the day, I always bring everything back to recovery from addiction, because that's what defines my life. I would have died a slow, sorry death if it wasn't for recovery. And and having come into recovery, the most painful lesson I had to learn was to learn that I am not that important, and what I think is not that important, and to submit myself to the how can I put it? There are principles that are timeless and that go far beyond my preferences, and I kind of look at Bitcoin that way, like it's far bigger than any one of us. And the thing about people like and this is what gets to me about somebody like Vitalik, is that the guy has obviously got some level of intelligence and maybe even genius going there, but I think that self-importance is what gets to me, where you think that, but I can do better. It's like, no, dude, you can't do better. These principles are timeless. They go back, further than what our history books go back. The idea of sound money goes back to when the first cavemen, decided to, look, I'm going to swap you this for that. And there was an idea of fairness. And what's fair between two people is never going to change. Now these guys come along and they think that they know better. It's like, no, you don't know better. We all think we know better, but I sit and I listen to some of the stuff that Vitalik has said recently, and it's just that I don't see how that sense of self-importance, it just rubs me up the wrong way. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I see it.
No, it makes perfect sense. Hermann, do you want to close off anything to say how people can find you and what's happening with Bitcoin Ekasi? I think we're going to share a lot of stuff about you in our show notes and everything, but anything you want to say to close things off?
I just want to reiterate what I hope I said it at the beginning. I just want to say thank you. I mean, like, the support has been incredible. Just thank you to everybody that supported us. I think that's the one thing that helps me with all the shitcoin posting, is that it's always nice to see that there's more Bitcoiners commenting than there are people who are posting about shitcoins in the comments on the stuff. So, if everybody that, like, even just like a comment here or there, if you're commenting on the stuff that we're posting, that's awesome, because it shows support, and it shows where it makes it easier to ignore the bullshit. If there's people showing their genuine support. To anybody that's been supporting us, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. For now, the only place that we are posting is on Twitter, under the handle Bitcoin Ekasi. We haven't launched a separate website for the effort yet. I don't know if we will. But if you want to reach out to us on Twitter. We've got a link there to a donation page. You can just follow the link, or we've got Twitter tips enabled. It's on chain, so if you want to donate via Lightning, you'll have to go to the website.
Cool, guys. Before we round off here, I'd like to say that I'm glad that for once I'm not the one doing the ranting and you two were. This is a very nice position to be in. So that's great. And then Brandon and I have got some news. We end of last year, we did a beta launch of our new product offering at Bitvice, where we've basically brought down the minimums down to $5,000 from 20. So if anyone wants to go and stack some sats with this dip that we got now, minimums down, and Bitvice is still the only self-custody exchange in South Africa. So that means we don't hold your sats, buy from us, and we send you a Bitcoin directly to your own self-custody wallet, software wallet, hardware wallet, multi-sig, whatever you want. We'll help you set it up as well. And there's minimums to come down, and they're going to keep coming down. And that's right, Brandon. We're going to keep working on that. And we got some cool other things coming still in the near future. We have another developer join us, so we've got our team has grown, which is great. So we're going to get things done a bit faster. And then also some projects we didn't lead with this, but we got some projects we like to support as well. So first one, obviously the Surfer Kids of Bitcoin Ekasi. Hermann's right here. You guys heard all about it. Go and support them. If you're a dev who works on Lightning, please go and support them with your time and resources as well, because they could use some help there. And then the second project we really want to give a shout out to is Exonumia. Kotsatsu is doing great work. They just got
got from the Human Rights Fund, 0.25 Bitcoin, baby. Well done.
Amazing. I couldn't think of a more deserving project, except for Bitcoin Ekasi and the Surfer Kids to get that funding. That's amazing. So Exonumia, if you guys don't know, they're doing translations, open source translations of seminal Bitcoin works into indigenous African languages. It's amazing. So we got to get the Bitcoin standard and cause up. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of cool stuff happening there. So very, very cool. Go and check out those projects. And we're really stoked that both these guys have got they've got funding now.
And if Safedin's listening, which he's probably fucking not, but if he is, please just
Bullshit, bro. Listen to all our pods.
bring down your bring down the costs for your rights to your book and let us change the African languages more cheaply, man. Come on,
Safe. Don't be like Nassim Taleb. Bring down the cost. Let us turn that. Let's put the Bitcoin standard in Afrikaans, bro. All right. On that bombshell.
Sorry, just on that point quickly, can I quickly say something?
Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to also a big shout out to Exonumia. I think it's more important than what one realizes, the translation aspect. You know, if you're going to spread adoption of Bitcoin, you've got to spread it in languages that people understand. And quite often that's not English.
Yeah.
So yeah, big shout out to them and what they're doing. I try and retweet their stuff on Twitter as often as I see it, because I think what they're doing is really important.
Also,
yeah, absolutely. And lastly, if you have got a Bitcoin project in South Africa that you think is, not that you think, if you're running a Bitcoin project, let us know. If we like it, we'll shill it on the pod. If it's some kind of shitcoin, we're probably going to talk shit about it. So don't talk to us then. But if you're doing a cool Bitcoin project, reach out to us. We'll definitely show you on the pod and get you on even to talk about it. So what we're trying to do here is get exposure to cool South African Bitcoin projects. And we've got a 2-footer hit rate so far. Guys have got funded. So it's great. It's good. It seems to be working.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome.
All right, guys. Hermann, once again, thank you so much for joining us. Brandon, as always, good to see you guys again. And we'll chat soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Guys.
Cheers.
Bye.